Welcome to the It's Time podcast with your host, Professor Dale Feinauer from the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh College of Business Graduate Programs.
Welcome to another It's Time podcast. I'm really excited today. I know I've said that a number of times, but really excited that today I have one of my friends, one of my mentors, and former dean of the College of Business, Al Hartman, with us to talk about the role of leadership from the perspective of a dean of a College of Business, which is kind of a unique perspective. But let's start with Al. Tell us just a little bit about you and why did you want to be dean of a College of Business?
Well, I came to Oshkosh initially in the psychology department, as I believe you remember. I'm an industrial organizational psychologist by training. And I gravitated to business when they asked if I'd come and teach part-time. So I did that, half-time business, half-time psych, and then eventually had an opportunity for a leadership role on campus. And that went reasonably well. I came back, I was assistant dean. I've enjoyed leadership roles throughout my life. As I mentioned before, I was president of my high school class my junior and senior year. I gravitate toward that. When our dean left in 1995, opportunity to be an interim dean, I really thought there were only two of us who should be, and that's our friend Burke Tower and me. And so we both applied, and I was chosen to be interim dean. I enjoyed leadership roles. I enjoy trying to get things done with other people. So that's what took me to the dean of the College of Business.
I'm always fascinated with leadership journeys. I've known you for years. I did not know you were president of your high school class. What did you learn about leadership from that role?
Well, what I learned was I could get into trouble.
A good thing for a high school student to learn.
Yeah. We had a new principal, and he wanted to change some things about homecoming, and we didn't like the changes, so we held a sit-in in the principal's office, and he ultimately agreed. That was my junior year. My senior year, at the very first meeting of student council, he made it clear that he was not happy I was there because I had caused him trouble before. So I learned to be probably a little more circumspect at times, but it was a great experience that my fellow students and I got something done that we wanted done, and so that was the biggest thing I learned, was I could get into trouble.
Well, and not to get into the politics of stuff, but there is, as one of our now former congressmen has noted, the concept of good trouble. Sounds like maybe you found a way to get into good trouble.
It was. I mean, the things he wanted to do ultimately went his way because the class after us acquiesced to what he wanted to do. So we did it. We did it for ourselves, but unfortunately it didn't carry through. And that is something I should have learned and remembered, because I've seen that on other issues where I've helped to create something and didn't build enough sustainability in it.
Didn't have the longevity you would have liked.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's think about longevity. You indicated you wanted to become the dean of the College of Business and were successful at becoming dean. Deans of colleges have a average tenure of 5 years. You remained dean of the College of Business for 14, for a very long time. Two sort of questions to that. Both why? Why did you want to stay dean, and how did that happen? Because often deans decide to move on because they're motivated to move on. You were a very successful dean for a long time. How were you successful so long? Why'd you stay?
I'll answer the last question first, and then I'll come back to the other. I stayed because I was committed to staying at Oshkosh. I did not have aspirations to be dean of another larger institution. I wanted to stay here. I wanted to help Oshkosh become a great place to work and live, and have the College of Business be considered one of the best colleges of business at least in the state, if not in the region. So I stayed because of that. I left not because I was tired of leadership. I left the dean role because I thought the college needed different leadership. That, having been there for 14 years, I knew that there were some things that I probably had missed, and it turns out I had. And as I said, when I talked to the faculty about I was resigning as dean, a new dean was going to come in and going to fix problems I couldn't, going to see opportunities I didn't, create some problems I wouldn't have, and probably miss some opportunities I wouldn't have. But the college needed some different leadership. I was able to stay that long. I think while I was dean, there were 4 different provosts and 2 chancellors. Then the dean reports to the provost. That was my boss, and the faculty were my boss. But when we have a new provost, I offer my resignation, and they chose not to accept it. Part of what I saw my role was to help the provost in where they wanted to go, and to help the college in where it needed to go, and to keep a cordial relationship with the provost and the chancellor. Chancellor Wells and I had a rocky first 3 or 4 or 5 years. We thought the college needed to do wasn't consistent with what he wanted. We had a specific admission to the College of Business. He prefers that you get him into the university and you're automatically in a college. And there were other things that we wanted to do that gave us more visibility. He just wasn't supportive of colleges kind of stepping out and being, recognized individually from the campus as a whole. But once I learned his value system, I was able to find projects that helped us and helped the campus, at least were consistent with his value system. So what I learned there was I wasn't a very good learner of his value system. It took me 3 or 4 years to figure it out, and that's way too long.
So in terms of managing up, one of the things we talk about leaders needing to do, your lesson in terms of managing up is to understand the values of the manager that you're managing up with.
Yes, he's a sociologist, and let me back up just a little bit. While we had our differences, he and I are both respect each other and are our friends. I still communicate with him on a regular basis, but he is a sociologist and an egalitarian, and that I needed to learn that quicker. That egalitarianism meant that things were equal across the campus, and anytime I tried to make us unequal, that rubbed him the wrong way.
That our tuition would be different, our salary would be different.
Exactly. Those were all issues. The tuition issue, that was the first thing that happened. We had successfully gotten approval from the students and from the prior administration for a separate tuition for the College of Business. Milwaukee already had it. Whitewater already had it. We were just seeking to be competitive with them. And the chancellor came to campus. He started his first day was October 1st. October 2nd, I got a telephone call That thing was dead. That wasn't going to happen because it wasn't consistent with his value system.
And it was consistent with ours because we thought there's a question of return on investment.
Yeah.
Graduates of the College of Business tend to make more than graduates of some other areas, so you have to pay a little more to get in and to get the degree, but you're going to earn more. So It's still going to be a good value proposition.
Well, it is, and the salaries for faculty in the College of Business are different, are higher than other faculty on campus.
We're better looking. Okay, that has nothing.
Well, that could be. That could well be, but but that because it costs more.
Yes.
In our budgets weren't increasing at the same rate that the faculty salaries were increasing. I mean, when we hired a new faculty member, we never replaced a new faculty member with what the prior faculty member was making. The salaries outside were going up enough that even if you lost a senior faculty, it would be hard to hire somebody at that same compensation. So this was a way to help offset some of that.
And now a short break to let some of the folks from the College of Business talk about various programs and services that the College of Business provides. Thank you.
Powerfully positioned, strategically designed, results driven. That's what sets the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh Master of Business Administration program apart in Northeast Wisconsin. Our MBA professional program offers flexible course options to meet the needs of working professionals seeking career advancement. Take the courses 100% online, in person during the evenings in Appleton or Oshkosh, or a combination of both, and earn your MBA in as little as 2 years. No GRE or GMAT required. It's time to achieve more with a graduate degree from UW-Oshkosh. Visit uwo.sh/MBA to learn more. That's uwo.sh/MBA. Visit today.
Okay, well, let's talk more about that. You did a bunch of entrepreneurial things while you were dean. You made new things happen on campus. Change is always tough. Change in an academic environment is even tougher. How did you successfully make so many changes happen? And maybe just describe it.
Well, you focus on me, but and the only way they happen is because we did it. I mean, that's the reality of it. We merged some entities that were serving businesses externally. We had the Kane Institute, we had the Small Business Development Center, and we had Business Continuing Education. We merged those into a unit, and we did that by, first having conversations with people about what our goals were, having conversations with the chancellor about what we thought needed to happen, and then brought them together. It ended up being what was called the Center for Community Partnerships, which evolved into the Business Success Center. But another thing that we created that hasn't been sustained, just didn't last. It lasted 20 years, or 25 years,
and something that lasts 20, 25 years, and during that time provided significant benefit both for the campus and the community.
Yeah, I know it did. The other thing, and you were involved in both of them, but the Wisconsin Family Business Forum. We helped create that in 1995, 1996 or so. We had our 20th anniversary, 97. We had our 20th anniversary in 97. We had 110 businesses were in the Family Business Forum, and you were involved in as a faculty liaison to the Family Business Forum. Of the 110 in 2007, of the 110, 109 was still operating and was still family businesses. Succession planning family businesses is a challenge. I grew up in a family business. I'd have been the third generation. And my two brothers and I, none of us had an interest in being in the business, and my parents eventually went out of business. They sold
to put that 109 out of 110, I believe the statistic is somewhere in the magnitude of 75% of family businesses fail to pass from generation 1 to 2, or 2 to 3, or 3 to 4. So there's a very high failure rate, if you will.
Right.
And that family forum that you were a lead in helping to create seemed to overcome that.
It did, and it provided a number of things, and you involved in one of them at least, and we created peer groups where family members from different businesses who are at the same level, the current CEOs, the next generation, gave them an opportunity to meet with others who were in a similar situation but not in the same business, so they could share their things that we're struggling with, things that they needed help with solving. We also provided opportunities to bring experts in to talk to family businesses about succession planning, what needs to happen, how do you have the difficult conversations.
There seems to be a pattern in how you got things done on campus and even some of what you did. It sounds like there's a lot of listening, that you spent a lot of time getting folks together to talk about things.
That's true. A friend of ours once commented to me that he thought he talked too much and I didn't talk enough, that there were things in my head that I didn't say that I should, and he said things that were in his head that he shouldn't. So, by nature, I'm not as an extrovert as you are. I'm not as engaging as you are. I tend to listen. I tend to ask questions. And one of the things I was going to share is one of the things that I think is important as a leader is being able to ask good questions.
Go on.
Because someone comes to you with an idea for something new, international, a graduate degree in an international business, and we did that.
Or I'm in a private sector and somebody wants to start a new product line, or move into a new market share, whatever it is.
Yeah. So even though you don't think it's a really good idea, or your organization had tried that 5 years ago, saying things like, we tried that and it didn't work, or it's too expensive, or you'll never make it work, those kill ideas. They don't just kill the idea that came that day, it killed the idea that would have come tomorrow.
Because that person says, there's no reason to play.
There's no reason to bring up ideas because no one's going to listen. So I hit the table. But, so ask good questions. Ask questions like, well, that's interesting. Tell me more about how, for like students, how are we going to recruit students for an international MBA? Who would you think would be a good student for that? How do you think we can cover the cost of the travel? And often it would, after some conversation of several minutes, the person says, okay, I've got to go back and do some more research. And sometimes they come back with good answers, and sometimes they realize themselves that this wasn't a good idea after all. Then as you walk through what it would look like, as you walk through how it would function, they come to the realization that, that's probably just not going to work now.
So I'm a leader in an organization. Employee comes to me with a suggestion, and I don't think this sounds like a particularly good idea. Rather than say, no, that's a bad idea, you would raise your reservations as questions and let them either find ways to overcome your reservations or come to the conclusion themselves that potentially this isn't a good idea.
Yeah, right. I mean, it does no good to tell somebody their idea isn't very good, to point out all the flaws. Let them think about it. Let them come to that conclusion. And sometimes, as you pointed out, they'll come up with answers that I didn't expect. And hey, it turns out what they wanted to do can work.
All right. Let's think a little bit about maybe how this was impacted by the nature of the organization in which you were a leader. As a dean of a college of business, for listeners, you didn't have a whole lot of the levers that many traditional managers would have. I worked for you. You were my boss, but it would have been awfully hard for you to fire me. It would have been awfully hard for you to give me a significant raise. It would have been very hard for you to cut my pay. A lot of the things that managers, the levers typically have, a dean simply doesn't. So how do you lead in an environment where you don't have that kind of formal reward coercive power?
Well, the things I used to reward people were primarily on the recognition side, would be, and faculty are by nature, I mean, that's a bad phrase, but you can leave it in there. It's a bad phrase, and I'm going to correct that. All right. We have to remember how faculty got to where they are. Faculty members, almost all of them have PhDs. In order to get a PhD, you have to write a dissertation, and you do that primarily by yourself with advice from your primary instructor, your chair of your dissertation committee. Faculty are accustomed to working alone, accustomed to teaching alone, accustomed doing research alone. So getting them to work together in groups sometimes can be a challenge. But if they congregate in departments in like areas, so if it's finance or it's human resources, they have something in common in their background, and there'll be things that they want to accomplish, and that's how it starts, is at that level. But you bring people together and play to the things that are important to them. It's important to them to get tenure. It's important for them to be recognized as being qualified and good faculty, and so you use that. You help. You recognize them for what they do. So that's the way I tried to get things done. And it was always with a we. I mean, there are very few things I can think of that happened in the College of Business that happened just because of me. I don't think there's any. So you get people together, you talk about what you want to get done, they share what they want, and you find a way to meet their needs along with the unit's or college's needs.
So it sounds like a pattern here with both the managing up and managing down of you tried to understand the followers, the leaders up the food chain in terms of their values, their personality, who they were, and then to understand what they wanted and use those two things to help drive direction that you could get support for. Is that?
I think that's a good description. And there are when you talk to people about what it is they want, I mean, they'll typically tell you, and so you try to find ways to make that happen. I mean, I knew things that motivated you, things that were important to you, and so I paid attention to that. I try to pay attention to what people want. Now, my wife probably would disagree with that, but
none of us are perfect.
I do pay attention.
In terms of paying attention to the followers, one of the things that you were clearly good at is being a mentor. In 2010, you were named the Mentor of the Year by Women in Management in the local area. Why was mentoring so important to you, and how did you, an old white guy, become Mentor of the Year for a women's group?
Well, I asked that question myself, because what I told when I accepted it, I told them I never felt like I was mentoring anyone. I mean, we were meeting to solve a problem and to discuss how to solve that problem, and I never thought I told anyone how they should, what they should do or how they should behave or how, what was the appropriate thing to do. We were always talking about solving a problem. I tried to listen. And my guess is what happened is that because I do listen more than I talk. This is unusual. I don't usually talk this much. Usually I let you talk because you're better at it. But I think probably because I listened, and a number of the women who had worked with me got more, were chosen for other leadership roles on campus. And so maybe it was some of the visibility they had working in our college. Maybe it was some of the visibility because, I try not to take credit for work that other people do. So I think maybe that had something to do with it. I never thought of myself as a mentor, and I never thought of it that way. But that's how it came across.
Well, let me rephrase what you said there a little bit. You certainly didn't take credit for work that other people did, but you were very good at giving credit to individuals for work that they did. Maybe pretty good at giving them credit for work that, to some extent, you did. But you helped individuals, lots of folks on campus, grow, develop, and get promoted, if you will, out of the College of Business into other roles on campus. So you had really good people working for you who left working for you to go someplace else.
Mm-hmm.
Why was that a good idea?
Well, you and I both know that's a good idea. Every organization should do that. I mean, it doesn't help you to try to hold someone hostage to work for you. You don't get their whole heart, their whole soul in working for you if you don't help them grow. So it's to their benefit and your benefit to help them grow. And when they do, and they find other opportunities, it'll come back in some way, and you become known as your organization, your entity, become known as a place where people can grow, and become successful.
So as a leader, helping your subordinates to grow and move on to other positions within your organization or outside helps you get good people to want to work for you because they see that you're going to help them grow, and helps seed your organization and other organizations with contacts that can be useful to you moving forward. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, absolutely. The fact that we had people working in IT, admissions, registrar, these were all people that worked with us, and they had affinity for us. They knew that they got support from us, and they got to where they are because of us. And not that they did anything. Let me rephrase that. We had a sympathetic ear. When we had an issue, we had a sympathetic ear about how to solve it.
And they knew they could trust.
Yeah.
They knew that when you said A was true.
Yeah. They knew that we weren't going to scam them. We were, if we had an issue, it was a real issue, and they'd help us solve it.
Now, let's think a little bit about that we in helping solve. You were dean of the College of Business. The university has X amount of resources. And sometimes it's kind of a zero-sum game. It comes to business or it goes to education or nursing or L&S. How did you as a leader in one part of an organization interact with the other leaders at your peer level in that organization? How did you approach your colleagues or competitors potentially?
One of the things that I wasn't as good at is arguing for the college in terms of money. There was one situation where one college needed the college, when we dealt with those issues at the university level, I tried to pay some consideration to what other colleges needed, partly because we were in a situation we could generate some external revenues. So there are times where I gave up things for another college because we really didn't need it as badly, or we had other sources. And one of the things that I didn't do as well is that because of the salaries kept going up and our budget didn't go up, what we had to do is to find alternative sources of revenue. And so I really, in this case, I left the next dean with the challenge of we had to raise each year when I left, we had to raise about $300,000 a year in outside money. Now, those of you in business who run multi-million-dollar businesses, that's chump change. But when you're in a situation where you have limited opportunities to make money, there are not a lot of opportunities the College of Business can make money. Remember, students paying tuition, that tuition doesn't go directly to the College of Business. That tuition goes to the whole entity. We get a budget, we live on that budget or not. So $300,000 is a significant amount of money to raise. And so that's an area where, and I know it's still the case. I know that one of the things you're leading generates revenue, and it needs to generate revenue because our budget never caught up with what we had to pay our faculty.
And now a short break to let some of the folks from the College of Business talk about various programs and services that the College of Business provides. Thank you.
The Cybersecurity Center of Excellence at the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh is focused on solving tomorrow's problems today. Corporations and other businesses in Northeast Wisconsin can utilize the center for threat analysis, incident response assistance, cybersecurity awareness and training programs, and professional development for technical and other staff. Learn more about the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh Cybersecurity Center of Excellence at uwo.sh/cybersecurity. That's uwo.sh/cybersecurity.
In terms of that generating revenue, one of the things that you were a significant player to make happen was a MBA that happened across a number of different campuses that was a fully online. And this was years ago when online was a new and odd and weird thing. How did that come about?
Well, we were interested in online delivery very early. And we had a faculty member who had an interest in it. And so that faculty member took a lead, Ben Arbaugh, who passed 4 or 5 years ago. We were, at the time, we were the largest MBA program in the state outside of, well, we were probably the largest true MBA program. Milwaukee had more graduate students. But we were a part-time program. We had 500 active students. And La Crosse, Eau Claire, and Parkside had very small programs, and they had begun sharing classes because they had such small enrollment. They needed to do that to just justify it. And they asked us, because I was friends with those deans, and we weren't, while in some sense we were competitors, but we also, met and shared thoughts and concerns, and they asked us to join. And we did join in sharing some courses, but we didn't immediately want to do a full online MBA, partly because I was a bit concerned that they were going to try to, they would take some of our students, our students, and migrate to that. But we had an opportunity to attract students from outside the state, and so we came up with the consortium online MBA. It worked very well. It didn't really siphon off a lot of our students. Students still wanted some face-to-face interaction with faculty. So it was partly because we had a relationship with them to begin with. As you know, with all of this stuff, it's all about relationships anyway. It's about your relationship with the people you work with. It's relationship with the people you are selling things. You're teaching students. That's your relationship with the students. You want students walking out the door happy with the experience they had. The online consortium, we want students to be happy when they graduated from that program. So we worked hard to have it be an effective program with good customer service. So that's how it came about. It has grown. That's one of the things that has some sustainability.
And it's one of the things that you left the next dean to grow and
Right.
to help fill that void of additional $300,000.
Correct. It was a revenue generator for us because we're working to attract students from outside the state primarily. So it generated revenue, and that when I left as dean, I did leave revenue generating opportunities that were there that we're going to continue to generate. The consortium MBA generated revenue. Some of the Business Success Center work generated revenue. And the Family Business Forum, while it didn't generate revenue for the college or the university, if you look in Sage Hall, you'll see the names of family businesses that were in the forum throughout the building as they supported that process.
So again, I'm hearing relationship. We'll come back to that in a minute. Introspection. What role has introspection and thinking about Al and Al's leadership style played in your leadership journey and development?
I do think about, to some extent, how I affect other people, and thinking about, my future. As I said, I gravitated toward leadership roles. I enjoy leadership roles, and every for-profit or not-for-profit board I've been on, I've had a leadership role. It's just something I gravitate to and enjoy working with others and helping them accomplish things they want to. The introspection part is that I feel better about myself when others feel better about themselves. It was, in some sense, that can be a failing, but that's part of how I was raised, and so giving back is important. Both of our daughters are actively giving back to the community themselves. So it's helping others and having them be successful makes us feel whole.
You've had these roles that have required lots of time, lots of effort, lots of demands on you. How have you taken care of Al during all this period of time? And maybe where you didn't take care of Al enough, what advice would you have to leaders on the importance of taking care of themselves as they're going through their leadership journey?
Well, not surprisingly, I enjoy team sports. So I played softball. The side story, and you can cut it if you want. When I was 68, I was still playing in the regular bar leagues in softball. Okay, and the guys we're playing with were 20 years younger or something like that. And I came up to bat the first time in one game, and the umpire looked at me and he said, "How old are you?" And I told him, I didn't say it real loud. I told him, well, the scorekeeper sits up above. The umpire turns around and yells, "He's 68." And you could see the other team who are 20 and 30 years younger than that. You know what they were thinking. So anyway, it was.
But you played softball.
I
played basketball.
I play basketball. Play basketball at lunch and pretty much every university has a basketball game at lunch. So I did those things. I enjoyed playing team sports. You need to find time to step away, and I didn't do that as well as I should have.
But that you found is
important. It's important to step away because you'll start thinking about things differently, and I think one of the reasons as I said, I resigned as dean. I wasn't I didn't want to stop being in a leadership role, but it was just time. It was time for them, time for me. I needed a different leadership role.
And interestingly, even when you stepped away, you were still actively learning about leaders and others. You told me multiple times about individuals you played basketball with and what you learned about them from playing basketball with them.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
How's that?
You learn a lot about somebody when you play basketball. You learn, particularly when you're doing pickup games and there's nobody calling fouls except you. If somebody is, upfront about when they foul you, if there's somebody is fair in how they distribute the basketball, that you learn a lot about what their values are, what they are as people. I mean, there are people that I play basketball with that I trust with them with my life. I know they would be honest. They'd be careful. There are other people I play basketball with I wouldn't, because they're not. So you learn a lot from playing a sport with somebody.
All right, let's go back to relationships for a minute to end this conversation. At one point in your tenure, you were ranked in a survey by faculty staff as the highest ranked campus leader in the system. Of all the deans in the UW system, you had the highest ranking. Now, how did you approach relationships with your faculty in such a way that they held you in such high esteem?
Well, I go back to listening, because I listened to what faculty wanted. We listened to what needed to happen, and if I had something I thought we needed to do, I wouldn't tell faculty this is what we need to do. Well, I did that once. We went online without a faculty vote. That I knew we had to do it. We just had.
And that was a time when you put on the autocrat hat and said, "Folks,
we just have to do this. We can't. We're going to be left behind if we don't do this. We can't. We cannot not." And so we did
so many things collaboratively, building support, etc. But you were willing, if necessary, to say, "This is the answer. Go."
Yeah, but because I'd had a history of working with folks, that I think there was a level of trust that to my knowledge, I never misled anyone intentionally. There are times I told somebody something that wasn't true, but that's because I thought it was true, and it wasn't.
You've been misled.
I was misled, but I tried to be honest with folks and say what things were, and so I think people trusted me, and so the few times that I ever said this is really what we need to do, it was accepted, and I didn't get any pushback. I didn't get any survey to get rid of the dean.
What advice would you give to the leader who is struggling with the question, is it time for me to step down? How do you as a leader decide in this particular leadership role, now's the time?
For me, it was looking at what had happened in the college. Are we accelerating in a particular direction? Are we doing better? And if I thought at that time that we just weren't moving enough, and it seemed like I had run out of steam. So that was, look at yourself, and are you really helping the organization move? And if you're not, if you're just treading water, maybe it's just time. And I was fortunate. 6 months after I said I wasn't going to be dean anymore, I got to be interim provost for a year, and I had a great time. It was a great job. I got to work with Chancellor Wells, who he and I had, as I said, had never had a number of disagreements on things, but we worked very well together. It was a good year. So I had another opportunity to lead.
Well, Al, as always, I want to thank you for taking your time to be here and participate in this podcast. And something I've never done at the end of a podcast, I also just want to thank you for being out. You have been a wonderful mentor to me. You have been a wonderful dean for the College of Business. You've been a wonderful resource for the Oshkosh community. And I want to thank you for all that you have done for all those folks who have been fortunate enough to have had interactions with you during their life. Thank you.
Well, thank you. You've been a great colleague. You've done, every time I've asked you to do something, you've done it, and you've done it well.
That may somewhat be a tribute to me, but to a large extent, it's a tribute to how well you have led and mentored me. Thank you for that.
It's Time is a production of the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh College of Business graduate programs in association with Venture Project Studios. Executive producer, Aaron J. Armstrong. Host, Professor Dale Feinauer. Creative Director, Madison Potratz. Director of Photography, Elazar Kloon. Audio and Video Editor, Elazar Kloon. Marketing Strategy, Tara Larson. Social Media, Anwar Mahana. A special thanks to L Creative, TopView Media, Michael Patton, and the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh College of Business graduate programs.